salawat. Salawat. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يأتيك ربك فترضى ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر فأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. As Afi has just recited Surah Al-Duha, I'd like to give a short history and tafsir on this surah instead of just a translation. To start off, this surah is a Meccan surah and it is Surah 93. This surah was revealed in the time where revelations of the Quran came to a halt and Jibreel had stopped coming to Rasulullah. Due to this, the unbelievers taunted him and said stuff like, Muhammad's Lord has forsaken him and is displeased with him. At this point, the surah was revealed. As in many chapters of the 30th part of the Quran, Surah Duha 2 begins with oath. The first oath, the time when the light of the sun spreads. In this verse, the word Duha is used in this meaning. The second oath, the night at the time when darkness has overtaken everywhere. That is the time when it has become still and settled. The third verse, Allah gives comfort to the Prophet by informing him that God has neither abandoned him and nor is he angry with him. It adds that soon Allah will provide him so abundantly that he will become content. And in the last verses of the surah, Allah reminds the Prophet of his past life to illustrate how Allah has always bestowed his loving care on him and in the most difficult moments has supported him in the past, and so his future was sure. That is why, at the end of the surah, Allah commands to the Prophet and the believers, since you have experienced being an orphan, do not subdue or abase any orphan. You did not possess anything, and God enriched you. Therefore, do not persecute or turn away a beggar. And thank God for the blessings He gave you by expressing them and not hiding them. Surah Ad-Duha, although a short surah, sends out a powerful message that there is hope, that Allah loves us, that better is coming, that Allah will give and remind us of all He has given us before. They remind us that our hardships won't last forever, and how they passed before, they will pass again. So what?
Thank you so much, girls. Thank you. So if I can now invite Shaykh Hobbollah to come and give his presentation. Thank you. Please recite the salawat.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Yes. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين الأكرمين. اللهم صل. Discussing the history of the mourning rituals of Imam Hussein alayhi salam in the first centuries is significant from various perspectives, including historical and jurisprudential viewpoints. Here now today I will focus solely on the historical aspect without intending to draw any jurisprudential conclusions. I don't want to say this ritual is correct and this one is bid'ah. No. It's just history to find out what happened at that time. I don't want either to take positions on the ritual itself at all. The complete objective is to analyze and observe the historical scene and how Hussein's mourning rituals were conducted in the early centuries in a very brief talk, inshallah ta'ala. And I will limit the discussion to the period following the martyrdom of Imam Hussein, because maybe someone could say that the Aza of Imam Hussein started from the time of Adam alayhi salam, because we have some riwayas, or started from the Prophet Muhammad, the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. I have nothing with before the martyrdom, before Karbala. I will speak just. No, that's okay. I speak just about what happened in after Karbala, and I will rely just on ancient historical the sources that before 8th century. I have nothing with the resource that after the 8th century, because these resources, maybe some scholars, they said they could say it isn't reliable, so I will focus on the resources that speak that it's until the 8th century, not after that. So, okay. We can divide the stages of commemorating of Imam Hussein alayhi salam in the first 5 centuries into 3 phases. The first phase, mourning rituals as personal actions. The second phase, mourning rituals as a limited religious act. And the third one, mourning rituals as a social phenomenon and the public and later political ritual. So we will start with the first one. The first phase, mourning rituals as personal actions. In this phase, I refer to the various forms of weeping and mourning that occurred following the martyrdom of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. These acts represent individual or situational response that do not inherently carry any new religious concept, nor do they constitute a repetitive social action involving the public. This means that it was natural for the family, relatives, and companions of the deceased to mourn him after his departure. That's very normal. It doesn't mean that it is something religious here. Such mourning is difficult to interpret beyond the expected human response to any loss, particularly for Imam Hussein, someone like Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam. When we examine the years following Hussein's martyrdom, we find various instances of mourning of this nature. People grieved for him, sat in lamentation, and wept over the events, to the extent that the year of his martyrdom was called the year of sorrow, Amul Huzn, like the year of sorrow. Then from the Bi'tha, when Sayyidah Khadija passed away. Examples of these mourning rituals in history include maybe the first Majlis Aza that we have in history after Shahadat al-Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, the immediate mourning after the martyrdom. Ibn Tawus and others recount, they said, then the woman said, for God's sake, let us pass by the place where Hussein was murdered. When the women saw the dead, they screamed and struck their faces. He said, by God, I will never forget Zainab bint Ali alayha salam, mourning of Hussein and calling out in a sad voice. So they cried and tried to say something about Imam Hussein salamullah. This was the first Majlis Aza, if we can say. Another one, Shaykh al-Saduq reports, he states, Hussein's horse came back with his mane and forehead smeared with Hussein's blood. It began to neigh and gallop. When the daughters of the Prophet heard its neighing, they came out to find the horse without a rider, realizing that Hussein had been killed. Kulthum, daughter of Hussein, came out, putting her hand on her head, mourning and saying, O Muhammad, this is Hussein in the open, stripped of his turban and cloak. So this is kind of aza, kind of ma'tam. Third thing, we observe mourning rituals conducted by some wives and relatives, wives of Imam Hussein. And some relatives like Banin. She had a majlis Banin. Similarly, we find numerous incidents along the route from Karbala to Kufa, in Kufa, on the way to Sham, Syria, in Sham, and on the way back. These include the weeping of the people of Kufa when they saw the captives from the Prophet's family and heard their words. So there were Majlis Aza at that time. As well as the mourning in Sham upon the captives' arrival. And in Karbala, again, on the return journey to Medina, when they came to Medina, they came to Karbala, because there are doubts about the Arba'in, whether they came to Karbala when they want to go back to Medina or not. Notable is that mourning ritual held by Salama, the Prophet's wife. And some historians, they described Salama as the first to cry out for Hussein in Medina. She was the first one in Medina, cried Imam Hussein, salamullahi alayhi. We have other rituals were held by the Hashimis, such as Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiya, he had Majlis Aza, like Majlis Aza. The daughters of Aqil, the women of Banu Hashim. This phenomenon extended for a year or more among the people of Medina, just in Medina, not outside the Medina. Not just 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. We have many riwayas speaks about 1 year, 2 years crying. And the Hashimids and the Prophet's family, they continue this. The family of the Prophet wore mourning clothes and declared their grief. Some texts explicitly mention they're wearing black. We have this. You know, there is a debate between fuqaha about whether wearing black clothes is mustahab or not. And the first scholar who mentioned this topic in fiqh was Al-Muhaddith Al-Bahrani, who passed away in 1186. Before that, there is nothing about istihbab wearing the black clothes. But they did it at that time in Medina. This continued until they were doing majalis aza, crying and weeping and all, till they heard that Ibn Ziyad was killed. And that was a habit between Arab. If you kill someone from my family, I will cry and make majalis aza till I can kill you. When I heard that someone killed you, that's okay. I can now be free. This was the habit, the culture of the Arab tribes. So an example of such mourning and weeping is reported by the very famous historian At-Tabari, who speaks about the departure of the Tawwabin, Al-Mukhtar al-Thaqafi, Sulaiman ibn Surad al-Khuza'i. They would gather at Hussein's grave, weep and seek forgiveness for Hussein before setting out to fight the Umayyads. So these some examples at that time. So thus we encounter numerous incidents of this kind, and by analyzing them, we arrive at several conclusions. First, this phenomena and similar instances cannot be historically interpreted as indicating that weeping and lamentation were religious ritual. They did not perform these acts because Islam directed them to do so as Muslims. Rather, these actions can be understood as natural human historical responses without needing to impose the notion of ritual mourning, because that's something normal. I can't be sure that 100% they did that because religion said to them, do this, and this is mustahab. I don't know. Maybe they did that because it's normal for them. It is only natural for the women, family, and the tribe to mourn a man like Hussein alayhi salam. And it's very natural for people going to fight his killers at his grave to feel grief and regret. That's very normal. This does not clearly indicate that the idea of a religious ritual, this is the very important word, that the religious ritual was present in their mind at that time. We don't know. Maybe, but we don't have any evidence for that after 10 years, 15 years from Karbala. This is the first one. Second, when we observe this phase, we do not find anything beyond weeping and mourning, and in some riwayas, latum, like this, put her hand on her head, some latum, and maybe this riwayah, we have some doubts about this riwayah that Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam, she hits her head on something, and she had some blood. So just a few things. So we have weeping, mourning, and a latum, like on the head, on the like this, as reactions at the level of family, tribe, or town. These expressions varied between the Hashimi family and those outside of it. The mourning within the Hashimi family seemed more pronounced and lasted longer. While outside the Hashimi family, especially outside Medina, such experiences of grief were almost non-existent. And for example, we don't have anything about Mecca, about Khurasan, about Ray, about Mosul, about Sham. We don't have anything. Just in Medina, we have all these examples that we mentioned now. They were situational, as I mentioned. Yes, people of Kufa, when they saw Prophet's family, they cried, done. And we don't have any idea about they did it again or not. They did the same thing in the same time next year or not. Nothing. Just in Medina, especially Prophet's family, especially Banu Hashim. As a result, we do not see any reports of mourning practices beyond weeping, sorrow, and mourning, unlike the many social mourning practices we know today. Third, this phase appears to have lasted about a quarter century after Imam Hussein's martyrdom, if we consider the idea that Imam al-Sajjad was the one who transformed mourning and lamentation into a ritual, a religious ritual. Because we have a riwayah from Imam al-Sajjad that we can understand this riwayah, we can interpret this riwayah, that he was the first one who tried to change the mourning of Imam Hussein to a religious ritual, something part of religion, not something human, normal. So this is the first phase from 61 on Karbala till 85. After that, especially with Imam al-Baqir, we have new things. Many things will change now. The second phase, the early texts that transformed Hussein's mourning into a religious ritual like we have today, it's a religious ritual, are associated after Imam Zayn al-Abidin with Al-Imam Muhammad al-Baqir. He encouraged people to weep and grieve for Imam Hussein, not just his family, but also the public, particularly his followers, the Shia. He explained to them the rewards they could earn in the hereafter for mourning Hussein alayhi salam. Interestingly, this is very important, Imam al-Baqir began to specify details of the acts associated with the commemoration. He goes to the details. I will mention now one riwayah. It's a very, very, very important riwayah in fiqh and in history. He goes to the details. Do this, don't do this. This time, not that time. It's like a salat, like a sawm. Malik al-Juhani was one of the Imam Baqir's companions, quoting Imam Baqir. Malik al-Juhani said, I said, may I be sacrificed for you, for Imam Baqir. What about those who are in distant lands and cannot reach him on that day? Referring to the visitation of Imam Hussein in Ashura, that day Ashura, the 10th of Muharram. He said, Imam Baqir alayhi salam, on that day, let them go. Look, now we have a'mal, like a'mal Laylat al-Qadr. On that day, let them go out to the desert or climb to a high place on their house. Salute him and curse his killers. Then pray 2 rak'ahs after doing so. So now we have a'mal, now 2 rak'ah. They should do this in the morning and the time. Look, now that we have the time. In the morning before noon. Then of Hussein and weep for him. They should also order those in their household to weep for him and establish a mourning ritual in their house by showing grief for him. Gathering, the idea of gathering to cry for Hussein, to weep for Hussein. Gathering, this idea. We don't have this idea before this riwayah for Imam Muhammad al-Baqir. They should, he continued, they should meet each other and cry over the calamity of Imam Hussein. I guarantee, Imam Baqir said, I guarantee them the full reward from Allah Almighty for all of this if they do so. I said, Malik al-Juhani said, I said, may I be sacrificed for you. You guarantee this for them if they do it and take responsibility for it? He said, I guarantee this for them and take responsibility for it. I said, how should they console each other? Go to the details. He said, they should say, may Allah magnify our rewards of our grief, for our grief over Hussein, and make us and you among those who seek his revenge with his guardian Imam Mahdi from the family of Muhammad. Then one thing, if you can, he said to Malik al-Juhani, if you can, do not leave your home for any need on that day. For it is a cursed day when no need is fulfilled. And if fulfilled, it is not blessed and brings no good. This is the riwayah of Malik al-Juhani. In this narration, look, for the first time, the idea is introduced that holding a mourning ritual is necessary substitute for visiting Hussein in Ashura. So first of all, you have to go there. If you can't, try to do Majlis Aza. So this is the idea. It also represents the first co-formation of mourning group consisting of those in the household who gather, weep for Hussein and console each other. So this means that Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam initiated the concept of mourning gatherings when direct visitation was not possible. And he laid the groundwork for collective mourning ritual. Furthermore, he emphasized the eschatological aspect by considering these acts as something for which people would be rewarded, valuing them as more than other religious deeds. This established the idea of a religious ritual for religious commemoration of commemoration of Imam Hussein's cause. Imam al-Baqir's reference to refraining from work on Ashura also hints at the idea of making it a formal holiday, a day dedicated entirely to remembering Hussein alayhi salam. So now we have a package. Time and not do anything, and at this time, and say to each other this, and cry, and everything. This process did not stop there. From the time of Al-Imam al-Baqir and onwards, there was encouragement for poets or praise for them in eulogizing Hussein. This is evident in the narration of Kumayt from Al-Imam al-Baqir and in the interactions between Di'bil al-Khuza'i and Imam al-Rida, as well as other poets with the Imams. Clearly, involving poets in this matter was an attempt to make the cause a public, socially significant issue, as poetry at that time was the most effective tool for promoting any concept on a broad social scale. So this is, now this is from Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, but we have to think about very important issue here. In the second half, so Imam Baqir passed away 114, Imam Sadiq passed away in 148. So this is the first half of the second century. In the second half of the second century after Hijrah, there was a clear emergence of the idea of the first 10 days of Muharram. We don't have this idea before Imam al-Kadhim. Before Imam al-Kadhim, the idea is Ashura, the 10th of Muharram. But now with Imam al-Kadhim, he tried to say, no, start the Aza from the beginning of Muharram, and the peak has to be on the 10th. Now changed, everything's changed. More and more and more. So in the second half of the second century after Hijrah, there was a clear emergence of the idea of the first 10 days of Muharram. These same concepts and calls began from the first of Muharram as seen in the text of Al-Imam al-Kadhim. For example, and after that, Al-Imam al-Rida, Ashura now became the peak of the mourning period. Not just Ashura, we have before Ashura, but everything in Muharram. Till now, we don't have anything outside Muharram. In Muharram, 10 days. However, these were primarily the calls of the Imam in the second century after Hijrah, from Al-Imam al-Baqir to Al-Imam al-Kadhim. The question remains, How did the Shia respond to these calls? This requires detailed investigation. We can expect a response from the Shia followers of the Imam, but it is difficult to determine the extent of this response. Did Shia's homes in the 2nd century after Hijrah become centers of mourning on the day of Ashura, like we have today? Even in secrecy due to the state pressure? Or were they unable to do so even to that extent, resulting in a weak response due to oppressive conditions or anything else? We have no information about that. Did the revolutionaries who rose up in numerous revolts from the time of Al-Imam al-Baqir onwards exhibit mourning rituals during their uprising? And to what extent? It is not easy to ascertain the degree of level of this. Historical data on the practice of this religious ritual by the Shia in the 2nd century after Hijrah is relatively scarce. But it does confirm that such practices emerged, albeit on a very limited scale. For example, I will give you an example from the 3rd century. The Alawid state, we have a state called Alawid state, Dawlatul Alawiyin, emerged in Tabaristan. Tabaristan is today is the Mazandaran in North Iran. During the time of Al-Imam al-Hasan al-Askari, mid-3rd century after Hijrah. They held power and influence in North Iran. There are no indications of mourning ceremonies being held in that vast region. They ruled for decades. Nothing. We don't have any information. They had Majalis Aza. This is the Shia state. Nothing in history. So maybe the Shia, they had these rituals, but just here and there, not like today. Historical and hadith texts indicate that the practice of visiting Hussein, we have to separate between Majalis al-Aza in villages, in cities, and visiting Imam Hussein in Karbala. We have to separate. Visiting Imam Hussein in Karbala, we can say historically, that began from the time of Al-Imam al-Sadiq, no doubt about it. The Shia, they used to go to Karbala from the time of Al-Imam al-Sadiq. But they used to do Majalis Aza in their homes, in their cities, in their villages at that time. No information about that, unfortunately. We cannot say yes, but we don't know exactly in detail. So this is very important. A different type. Now we start from Karbala, Imam Zain al-Abidin, then Imam Baqir, then Imam Sadiq, then 10 days of Muharram with Imam al-Kadhim. Then something happened in the time of Al-Imam al-Rida alayhi salam. Different thing. A different type of development began towards the end of the 2nd century and in the beginning of the 3rd century after Hijrah. A new indicator appears during the time of Al-Imam al-Rida. Perhaps for the first time, Hussein was publicly eulogized in the presence of Caliph al-Ma'mun. We don't have such a thing before Al-Imam al-Rida. The poet Al-Di'bil al-Khuza'i, the poet came and he started to eulogize Imam Hussein in front of Al-Ma'mun and Al-Imam al-Rida, and people crying, weeping. So this is the first time in history. But unfortunately, that happened just for 1-2 years. Because after Ma'mun, everything again changed. And the Abbasid, they don't accept these rituals at all. So from this, we deduce that the concept of mourning Hussein in the 2nd and 3rd centuries centered around, please, this is very important for me to understand the history. what happened in the 2nd and the 3rd century centered around welcoming Muharram with sorrow and mourning, peaking on the 10th day, Ashura, visiting Hussein's grave, holding mourning ceremonies wherever possible, calling for collective or individual weeping in homes, remembering the tragedy, refraining from work on Ashura, composing poetry, showing signs of mourning, and avoiding displays of joy and celebration in these 10 days. This is what we have, the information that we have about 2nd and 3rd century between Shia. These activities were focused on the first 10 days, just. Outside this, we don't have any information. First 10 days of Muharram, or at the Hussein's grave. There is no historical evidence of holding mourning ceremonies for the deaths of relatives that we have today. My father, my brother, my sister passed away, and I will do Majlis Aza for them. Nothing in history in the 2nd century and 3rd century between Shia. No idea about that. Again, I don't speak from a jurisprudential perspective. I speak with just historically. So nothing. There nothing about carrying banners and flags. Nothing about that. Draping cities, villages, and homes in black. Nothing. Self-flagellation. Nothing. Or more than this, walking on hot coals. Crowling, they said like dogs. They said about themselves. I don't say that because I don't like to say that. They said crowling like dogs at holy cities, or considering the month of Safar as a month of mourning. Nothing in history in the 2nd and 3rd century. Additionally, maybe it's a bit surprised for you, it does not appear that distributing food during mourning occasions was a practiced custom. Nothing about even food in Majalis al-Aza and after Ashura and after nothing. This is historically. So the last one, and it's very quickly, the 3rd phase, mourning ceremonies as a social phenomenon, public ritual. The end of the 3rd century, now we don't have A'imma, unfortunately. We have Ghaiba Kubra, the 3rd century, the end of the 3rd century. Now after Asr al-A'imma. Be careful. The end of the 3rd century after Hijrah marks the beginning of historical confirmed public mourning practices for Hussein, which evolved into a more visible and social recognized phenomenon. At-Tanukhi, one of the very famous scholars who passed away in 384, he said that a person in Baghdad, none for mourning Hussein. He was Qari Aza, and he is none, he's famous. So that means Aza on Imam Hussein was in public at that time. Named this person, named Ibn Asdaq. His name is Ibn Asdaq. Used to lament his Hussein and make people cry at his grave on the night of mid-Sha'ban. Now we have mid-Sha'ban. The mid of Sha'ban, 15 Sha'ban is a very important now for the Shia to doing Majalis Aza. Not just first Muharram till Ashura. Now we have a new thing. So Ibn al-Athir, one of the very famous historians, also mentions the crying of the Shia at Hussein's grave in the events of 296 after Hijrah, indicating the end of the 3rd century after Hijrah. According to some scholars, the first public ritual was initiated by An-Nashi al-Asghar, An-Nashi al-Asghar, Ali ibn Ubaidillah, who passed away in 365 after Hijrah in Baghdad. He was a Mu'tazili theologian and poet who converted to Imamiyya sect and studied under some prominent Banu Nubakht figures, well-known Shia theologians at that time. Despite the relative relaxation of restrictions after the era of Al-Mutawakkil, you know, Al-Mutawakkil al-Abbasi in history was very, very harsh Khalifa against the Shia, against the Mu'tazila, a lot of people. So his time was very, very, very difficult for the Shia. So after him, Al-Muntasir al-Abbasi came to the power. And the situation became a bit better with Al-Muntasir al-Abbasi, not like with Al-Mutawakkil al-Abbasi. So At-Tannuhi indicates, he said after Al-Mutawakkil, even after Al-Mutawakkil al-Abbasi, he said, indicates the lamentation and mourning for Imam Hussein in the late 3rd and early 4th centuries after Hijrah still exposed participants to the risk of attacks and physical elimination by the Hanbalis. The Hanbalis at that time, they had a lot of power. So they gave fatwa to kill this Qari' Aza and this Qari' Aza and this poet and this one and this one. So they had Majalis Aza, but under risk. And it was very risky to do Majalis Aza in public at that time. Even after Al-Mutawakkil al-Abbasi, the situation became better. But unfortunately, the Hanbalis, they tried not to allow the Shia to do this publicly. Al-Maqrizi states that mourning rituals were held in the shrines of the Prophet's daughters in Egypt, Kulthum and Sayyidah Nafisa. At that time, the 4th century, it was very common in Egypt. They have Majalis Aza in these shrines. During the Ikhshidis dynasty in the 4th century after Hijrah, and the Ikhshidis, they said, try to prevent people to come to these shrines. And so these historical references suggest that by the end of the 3rd century after Hijrah, the Shia had begun to publicly hold mourning ceremonies for Hussein al-Bayt within limited scopes and still under caution due to potential dangers. And now, finally, the significant transformation occurred in the mid-4th century after Hijrah during the era of powerful Shia states, particularly the Buid in Iran and Iraq, and the Fatimid in North Africa, extending to the Levant. Mu'izzu ad-Dawlat ad-Daylami. This name is very important to the history related to the history of rituals of about Imam Hussein. Mu'izzu ad-Dawlat ad-Daylami, a Buid ruler, officially declared for the first time in history, declared Hussein's mourning ceremonies as a state tradition in 352 after Hijrah. He ordered public mourning, the display of black banners, and the expression of grief. A few years later, the Fatimid state in Egypt and North Africa adopted similar practices, establishing the first widespread public mourning supported by the highest state authorities. Now we have another situation. We have two very powerful big states, Shia states, in Iraq and Iran, the one, and the second one in Egypt and North Africa. And both said Majalis al-Aza like today. Not like today, no. Like today, it's from the Safavid time. But yes, a bit. So this turned Baghdad into a city known for its Ashura's rituals, featuring Baghdad mourning in streets and squares. And unfortunately, like today in some countries, these practices in front of people, in public, occasionally led to confrontations between Shia and Sunnis in Baghdad, and a lot of blood, killing each other, and like what we have today in some places. The situation remained relatively stable until the Seljuqis. Seljuq is a very Sunni state. arrived in Baghdad in the mid-5th century after Hijrah, who then prohibited public mourning practices. In Egypt, public mourning continued until the end of the Fatimid in 567 after Hijrah, after which the Ayyubid, like the Seljuqis, banned such practices. A conclusion and in summary, the mourning rituals of Imam Hussein alayhi salam emerged naturally and predictably, initially gaining religious significance during the era of Imam al-Baqir. The mourning activities then centered around Hussein's grave and within homes on a limited scale. The spread of these practices in the 2nd and 3rd centuries is unclear, except for some reliefs during the eras of Al-Ma'mun and Al-Muntasir al-Abbasi. However, the mourning rituals for Imam Hussein took a significant leap in the 4th and 5th centuries under the Buyids and Fatimids, becoming a public and annual social phenomenon during Ashura and the month of Muharram. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.
Thank you so much, Shaykh. So now we'll open the floor to questions or comments or anything. So I'm hoping there will be plenty.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for that talk, Shaykh. It's really helpful. I'm just curious, when you were talking about the narration from the 5th Imam to commemorate Imam Hussein, is that a reliable and authentic hadith that we believe? Oh, sorry. I have a follow-up.
Okay, ask a second question and then I'll
Sorry,
answer.
I was going to say, it feels curious to me that the 4th Imam wouldn't establish the rituals, and it seems that the further away you get from the time of Imam Hussein, 61 AH, the more elaborate the commemorations become.
I just mentioned Malik al-Juhani's hadith, just an example, because we have dozens of hadith from Imam Muhammad, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, that some of these hadith 100% reliable and sahih, no doubt about that. According to, because I focused on Imam al-Baqir than Imam al-Sadiq, because we just have, as I remember, one riwayah, and there is some doubts about this riwayah from Al-Imam Zayn al-Abidin, that he said that it's a religious ritual and do it and something like that. But your question is theologian and jurisprudential, theological and jurisprudential question. Because the Shia believes that each Imam, like Prophet Muhammad, there's no different if we have the hadith from Imam al-Askari or from Prophet Muhammad or from Prophet or Imam Ali, salamullah alayhi. So because of this, they said, what is the problem in this? That's okay. If Imam Sadiq said, that means Prophet Muhammad said, because we have some riwayas that Imam Sadiq said, what I said, my father said, and what my father said, his father said, till it reached Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So theologically, there is no problem for the Shia to accept this as a religious ritual, even they started from the time of Imam Baqir. The same example in Khums. In Khums, you know that we don't have anything before Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, but today, the majority, I can say maybe ijma' between Shia that the Khums is wajib. So,
thank you, Shaykh. In the guidance from Imam Baqir, it started, if you can't go to Karbala. Do we have authentic statements, religious instructions from the Imams to advise people to go to Karbala to visit Imam Hussein? And my next second question is, do we then have reports of the Imams going themselves to Karbala? Thank you.
Excellent. For the first question, we have, maybe I can say, maybe more than 100 hadith about visiting Hussein in Karbala. So no doubt between Shia. Not just we have more than 100 hadith. Some scholars, some fuqaha, they said زيارة الإمام الحسين في كربلاء is wajib one time in your life, like Hajj. Because they found some hadith, some authentic hadith, said you need to go, you have to go there, you should go there. It's kind of aqimus salat, like this. This is the first one. The second one, so we have some hadith from that Imam Sadiq when he came to Iraq, because in history we have some riwayas that mentioned that Imam Sadiq came 3 times to Iraq. According to Al Khalifa, he asked him to come to him. So we have some riwayas that he went to their grave. But for other, no, we don't have. But we have Ziyarat al-Nabi and the Imams in Baqi' and in Medina. Yes, we have this. But Imam al-Rida or Imam al-Jawad, we don't have very clear hadith about this. Yeah.
Ladies, any questions?
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh. I know you were speaking after the martyrdom of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. I wanted to ask what your research has found about a hadith that we hear before the martyrdom of Imam Hussein, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam narrates what will happen in Karbala in front of Bibi Fatima salamullah alaiha, and she says, "Who will cry over my Hussein?" And then Rasulullah says, "A nation will be born who will mourn Hussein till Yawm al-Qiyamah." Have you found this to be an authentic hadith? Have you come across it? Please, if you could elaborate on this. Thank
you. This hadith, I mentioned in the beginning that I just want to speak about what happened after Shahadat al-Imam al-Hussein, not before Shahadat al-Imam al-Hussein. And about this hadith, you have to see that the chain, the isnad for this hadith, directly to Prophet Muhammad or Imam Sadiq or Imam Kadhim said the same thing. So maybe the Imam Kadhim and Imam Sadiq, because normally what we have from Prophet Muhammad, it's from Ahl al-Bayt. So in this case, Imam Kadhim and Imam Sadiq said that. So we don't know that Prophet Muhammad, he said that publicly. Maybe he said that to Ahl al-Bayt, like we have Mishaf Fatima, like we have Al-Jami'ah, like we have Kitab Ali. And now in the time of Imam Al-Kadhim and in the time of Imam Al-Sadiq, they said this hadith. But before that, we don't have such a thing. If we have such a thing, why Prophet Muhammad or even the A'imma qabla al-Imam al-Hussein, before Imam Hussein, they didn't do anything? So that's the question.
I'm going to ask a question, actually. I want you to ask you about the possible reason that Imam Muhammad Baqir, for example, would have, made such a statement. So you gave the example of Homs. So obviously, Homs was introduced because of the, need of the time, of the political situation. Could it be that the emphasis that the later Imam from Muhammad Baqir onwards put on the commemoration, because it was from first one day, just Ashura, to then becoming 10 days, could it be due to the political situation and the oppression of Shias, and to kind of make sure that the sacrifice that Imam Hussein had made was not forgotten, as opposed to it being a religious obligation like we have with Salah and Saum?
That's possible. Shaykh Murtada Mutahhari, he mentioned some of the riwayat about Ziyarat al-Imam al-Hussein. And in these riwayas, said, if you go to Ziyarat Imam Hussein, it's better than 1,000 Umrah and 1,000 Hajj and 1,000 Shaheed and 1,000. He said, look, I can understand these riwayas in the context. These riwayas came at the time of Al-Mutawakkil al-Abbasi, at the time of the Abbasid, and going to visit Imam Hussein at that time means trying to protect the identity of the Shia, not like today. So yes, I can say maybe the idea is making the martyrdom of Imam Hussein alive. And these was some ways to do that at that time. And the Aimma, they said that because they want to make this cause very important in the Shia and in their lives. So maybe we can say this detail or these details in do this in before afternoon and do this and after 2 rak'ahs and this. Maybe it isn't part from the religion itself. It's kind of showing your love to Imam Hussein. And we need to show our love to Ahlul Bayt because إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَةِ. And so this is some misdaq, some applications to express your mawadda to Ahlul Bayt salamullahi ta'ala alayhim. Maybe it's very important to understand this religious rituals in the context. Maybe I don't say it's 100%. Maybe yes, they want to people to do that, not because it's like a salat and sawm, but because it's kind of showing your love to Ahlul Bayt salamullahi ta'ala. If you have another way to do that, that's okay.
Any other question? Yes? No? Sajjad, do we have anything online? Okay, I'm guessing not then. Thank you so much, Shaykh. Really appreciate it. If can have a loud salawat for Shaykh, please. Thank you so much. Jazakallah. Just a couple of announcements. So this Sunday, 11th August, we planned a day trip to Carding Mill Valley. We hoping to meet there at 11 o'clock. If you would like to attend, then please register on the link that's been shared on the group, and you'll be added to a temporary WhatsApp group for more details. After that, our next program will inshallah be on Thursday, the 29th of August, to commemorate the death anniversary of our Holy Prophet. The talk will be delivered by Dr. Ali Raza Bojani. And if you would like to contribute towards Time for Change, you can do so using the link that's been shared on our group, using the QR code, by refreshments, by card or cash. And if you can please end by reciting a Surah Fatiha for all Marhumin al-Fatiha. We'll recite Maghrib Jamaat Salah at 8:54, inshallah, so just less than 10 minutes. And refreshments and table tennis will be in the conference room after that.